Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Sommer. I'm a partner here at Mazars in the US in the technology and media practice. And I'm joined today on today's Take 5 with Matthias Gutzman, who is the founder of DPW, Digital Procurement World. And thanks for joining us today. And why don't we start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Great, thanks for having me. Hello from Germany. My name is Matthias Gutzman. I'm the founder of DPW, Digital Procurement World. And DPW started off historically as a conference, was founded last year in 2019, really with the idea of bringing together emerging tech and senior procurement professionals to really, create that discussion and that venue for them to collaborate and innovate together. I came up with the idea really of creating that new digital procurement ecosystem after I, worked for a procurement startup myself. Really was looking for events and trade shows to showcase our procurement startup, and really realized there was no ecosystem and procurement out there that made it easy and affordable for startups to get involved. So, I decided to leave my old company in New York and move back into my parents' house, spent all my savings to launch DPW last year, really, which started off as a conference and with a mission to help large organizations, specifically their procurement departments, to collaborate with emerging technologies to transform digitally. That ecosystem until then was really missing. And so that's really how I started off today. And we can talk about this later, I think, Jonathan, as well, as we go through the discussion. DPW is more than just a conference.
Right. So maybe for those of us that aren't deep in the procurement space or specifically the digital procurement space, can you just give us a little summary of what digital procurement means?
Yeah, of course. I mean, let me maybe start off with, explaining the audience what procurement is. A lot of people have really not heard about that word yet, probably. But in a nutshell, procurement really is a function within a large company that is in charge of buying all the goods and services. So that goes from sourcing the raw materials to the services, for example, professional services like legal services or advertising services, through to managing the contracts with the suppliers, but also really maintaining those relationships with the suppliers. So in a nutshell, if you look at a company, you have, various functions. Procurement really sits in the middle of that internal ecosystem, touching all the different functions, and has really the connection to the outside world, to the supplier. So in a nutshell, really procurement's job is to, match business needs or unsolved business problems with the capabilities of the external world, the suppliers, and bring that into the company. So we talk about things like, driving down cost buying the goods and services at the lowest price and the highest quality. So, the traditional focus of procurement was around, taking out costs. But today, as procurement also as a function becomes more strategic, it drives other things as well, like innovation and sustainability activities. So it's really around not only, focusing on cost, but going beyond that. And there's a phrase around, procurement is really helping the business beyond just cost savings. And so digital procurement in a nutshell is really the application of new disruptive technologies, to enable procurement as a function to, buy the goods and services better, cheaper, faster, to become more predictive, to become more automated, to become more proactive. So, for example, a lot of bots today in procurement are automating and streamlining some of those manual tasks. And you have buying agents and advisors automated as well that, support category managers with their decision making around some of those categories. You have what else? So you have you can use monitor your supplier risks in real time today, right? By external data feeds and visualizing that. So it's really around, applying that tech to reimagine how procurement is done today. But I think the challenge for the chief procurement officer and their teams today is really around, finding the best technology that's out there. There's so much technology coming through, so many startups now coming off the ground, and really then also scale those technologies across the business. So it's really around collaborating with those startups to bring the tech in on one side. And procurement historically is a very risk adverse function. So it's also around reimagine new ways of working with those startups. Typically procurement would make a startup fill out a 30-page NDA, right, before even talking to them, right? It's around, I guess, becoming more agile and more open, and maybe, take some of that process thinking away, which procurement typically has, right? And there's with thinking and really, work with those startups in other ways. So exciting times to be in procurement, but with all those tech coming through, there's a lot of challenges as well. And I think procurement has an opportunity there to become more strategic, automate a lot of tasks, and do more strategic tasks, activities for the business, like, for example, driving more innovation with their suppliers.
Right, and I would think that, I guess, with all that's going on now with COVID and remote working, that bringing technology into something like procurement, I guess, as you were saying, makes these businesses a little bit more agile and able to sort of keep going and operating, I guess, the way that they were. And speaking to COVID and the impact on the business, obviously, with your business originally focused around a live event, there's been some changes, and I know someone that works with event businesses and attends events, a big part of events is, there's sort of two main focuses, content and networking. And I guess, how have you been able to pivot, and what are your plans with the remote work environment going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, when I launched the DPW last year as a conference, I launched this conference, had this huge success with my launch event. It was dubbed Best New Procurement Event. And, I never really had initially that long-term plan. I knew that conference was needed, and, the procurement industry needs DPW. And then after the first event, I said, oh, wow. So what next? And then I wanted to do the second event. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and I realized that I was very vulnerable as a company, right? By just having one in-person event. So I had to cancel the conference and had to really reinvent myself. The conference will still take place next year. So we already scheduled the date. It's a 2-day conference out of Amsterdam. That's the only big conference we are hosting, and DPW once a year. But obviously we are now rethinking how we, run the event. It will not be an in-person only event. We're now moving into a hybrid event format, where people can, zoom in and watch the event virtually, digitally, from wherever they are, but also have that event in person. We are having a 600 people event in terms of size, which is still kind of small compared to some of, the other events out there. I'm thinking of Dreamforce at Salesforce. I think there's a general trend. I see that, I think there is a trend away from those huge events that are almost transforming cities, where we have 100,000 people coming into the city over the course of a week. And there's a trend going towards more regional, smaller events. I think we still need those events, those in-person events. But I think me as a company, I really had to rethink how I serve my new customers in new ways. And, ramping up our digital experiences, our digital events will be key in the future. But again, there's still space for live events, but it's going to change. Also, because I think the sponsors and the corporates attending those events, I mean, they're rethinking twice today, if they should send their employees to those events. And, it's really that balancing that risk reward question of attending those events.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's definitely an interesting time, with events, and the sort of where is it going to end up, and how much are things, and when are they going to go back to normal? Sort of impacts, I guess, the direction. But I think it's definitely a time to reinvent the path, and sort of like you said, limit the vulnerability of the business by focusing solely on the live events.
Yeah, and to be honest, and I believe those, I started off as a pure events business as well. I think those pure event players and conferences, they have to think more long term as well. They have to reposition themselves. I think what we're doing as well is we are going from a conference to more of a community model, where we now can serve our customers all year round, in form of an online collaboration community almost. I think the other thing is we have to think more long term as well as event producers, right? I already think around, how am I now positioned when doors open again, when things are getting better? So I think we have to think more long term. We have to, create all year round engagements and to serve our customers. I think on the event space, as companies and sponsors and attendees, or the buy side is getting probably also a little bit more cautious of what events they are going to attend. So maybe they're not attending 5 events next year. Maybe they're only attending 1 or 2 events. So I think the events with the strongest brand and reputation are going to win as well. So I think the fight for the customer will be critical, and you have to create that digital experience as well, right? When it comes to creating online experiences, and I believe in what I told you prior to our call as well, is that I believe that you cannot blueprint a physical event one-to-one into a digital experience. I mean, it is a different experience, and you can't just have a 2-day event online. You don't get that attention span from your audience online. It will be difficult. So I think it's creating this new experience, but still making sure that you have the key things that are important for people who also attend in-person events. And I believe people attend events based on 3 things: relevance. So we need to create good quality content that's relevant to that attendee's role. You need to create networking opportunities. So how can we create a virtual networking opportunities in a digital event? So that's key as well. And obviously then the convenience part, which is a good thing. Being digital, it's easy to plug in. But again, maybe don't do a 2-day conference virtually over 2 days. Maybe do for example, a procurement week, where you have maybe 2-hour presentations a day and create this out. But that goes again, taking away the pressure of having a 2-day conference once a year. Creating that experience all year around also kind of mitigates that risk in a way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, and it's definitely interesting for sure. And I think our time is up here, Matthias. I just wanted to thank you again, and maybe give you just another opportunity to remind us of your next upcoming event.
Okay, well, I've, there are a couple of things, but, I do a few, behind the doors CPO think tanks, where I bring together, chief procurement officers. But, I'm currently building out a few new products. So, in that sense, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a source of innovation and inspiration. We are now moving to a community model from a conference only model. We created a Scout Lab program, where we help large companies find the best new technology, kind of like as a matchmaking service, and really bringing emerging technology now into the companies. And then we also did a startup pitch competition in a virtual format. So we are going to ramp up our digital offerings, build out that community, and keep building that brand. And honestly, in those times, just staying humble and having fun with what we're doing.
Excellent. Thanks again, Matthias, for spending the time, and look forward to hearing what comes next from you guys.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.